weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Amazing Spider-Man number 21, written by Zeb Wells, pencils by John Romita Jr., inks by Scott Hanna, Marcelo Menez on colors, and VC's Joe Caramagna on letters. Here is the recap, a bit long. A year and a half ago, something mysterious happened to Peter Parker. During that mysterious happening and the ensuing 6 months, Peter burned bridges with his friends, loved ones, and fellow superheroes to the point where Norman Osborn was the only person who would give Peter the time of day. And if that weren't enough, Mary Jane Watson came out of the experience in a new relationship and as the mother of 2 children. Peter has since gotten his life back on track, taking a job at the new Oscorp, writing himself with the people he cares about, rekindling an old flame with Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat. But the shadow of what happened to Spider-Man has loomed over his life like an ever-present specter. You are about to learn what happened. Now, all right, so here it is. We're going to start the beginning of the end of this whole mystery box story. And by the end, we'll talk about that and talk about maybe how it compares to other mystery box stories in Spider-Man. But I just want to say the thing that worries me the most is that at the end of this, it's going to kind of make every issue leading up to it not really matter. You know, we'll say 26 issues of nothing then. That would be if you had a hard reset, like they wake up 6 months ago, none of this happened. Then I'd be like, well, why didn't we just start there? I don't think it's going to be that drastic, but I'm hoping that it doesn't end up making all the other issues null and void. We'll see. But we start this off with Peter getting up. He's getting ready to go off to work. So he's going to go off to Oscorp, brushes his teeth, has some toast. Then we switch right to Mary Jane, who seems frustrated and overwhelmed. She's getting her 2 kids ready to go to the park. Paul comes in with some butter cookies at the last second, not really helping, but kind of helping like a dad would. I know I have 5 kids. I've done this maneuver many, many a time. But while Mary Jane is trying to get the kids ready, she yells at her little girl that is cute as a button and pretty much a mini MJ and says, Stephanie, why aren't your shoes on? Now, if you have paid attention, that is not the name that this girl went by at the beginning of this run. Her name was Rami. And whether or not they're going to play this off as, oh, Rami, that was a nickname, I'm not going to buy that. You can play it up in different ways, though. I mean, one of the things that I'm thinking is, because this really feels like a big mind whammy, a mind freak. Chris Angel came down. The idea that this happened and started a year ago, these kids aren't a year old, so what gives? So you can almost get that idea like reality's shifting in subtle ways. You know, Rami to Stephanie. Oh, boy. So are they going to do that? It's almost like an error that gets turned into a feature. We'll see if they do that, but with Paul's help with his butter cookies, they get the kids ready. They're going off to the park. Now, they're going off to the park because it seems like it's a nice spring day. It's 70s. They're going to head off to the park. Peter thinks about the idea as he's heading to work, the idea that spring comes earlier and earlier each year. And every time you say that, a Greta gets her wings, I believe, right?
How dare you?
It is fun. It made me laugh. I thought of Greta right away when he's like, sunny day, spring comes faster every year.
How
Damn
dare
right
you.
it does. But you end up when Mary Jane, Paul, and the kids come out into the street and it's snowing. It's windy and snowing. Well, that's not what the weather said. Obviously, they wouldn't be going to the park in that weather. I mean, Mary Jane seems frustrated, but she doesn't seem like that sus a mother. And so you see a cyclone, though, coming through New York City. Peter sees it, says, oh no, right? My reaction. And Mary Jane and Paul see it. And Mary Jane says, Paul? And Paul says, I see it. Now, at this point, I was kind of shocked. I didn't think that in this whole story, when we would start to get towards what did happen, I didn't know or think that Paul was going to know so much. I think he knows a little too much. I don't like Paul. And I really now, he is sus because this cyclone comes towards them and they actually see inside there is a figure. There is a guy in there and you can tell the guy hasn't shaved in years. I can tell. But it's not Mary Jane who starts oh my God, it's him. He's back. It's Paul. Paul says it's him. Mary Jane says, it can't be. Are you sure? Like, she doesn't even think it's him. But Paul's right on the money. What's going on, Paul? And they say, oh, my God, it's a scribble man. He's back. They seem to have a deal where they have an emergency plan. And I'm not saying that they sat down and said, if the scribble man comes back, that you do this. I think this is their emergency plan because a lot of crazy crap goes down in New York City, right? So you end up where the plan is opposite directions. Paul gets the kids, runs off. And actually, I said that this may be the scribble man plan. I don't know, but you end up where Paul grabs the kids. He's going to go one way. Mary Jane's going to go the other and get a hold of Peter and say, oh, my God, do you see it? He's back. But in the meantime, sus Paul, as he's walking away, says, remember how this works. I'll find you when they're safe. What does she remember, old Paul? And why do you remember? Because I don't know if nobody else is yelling like, oh, no, the scribble man's back. This seems very personal for Peter and Mary Jane. What's up, Paul? I have a kind of a theory, but Mary Jane calls Peter and says he's back. He came back. And then we go to a black screen 1 year later. Boom. And we swipe to Rikers Island. And we see, and you can tell right away, this is the figure that was in the cyclone. Now, I'm going to try to get through this quick enough. This character is Rabin. This is a character that Zeb Wells created back in 2008, who appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 555 to 557. It gets very intricate. It deals a lot with Mayan mythology and time and calendars. And really, anytime you deal anything Mayan, it's calendars, right? So you end up, and I'll give you the layman's deal, or as I like to say about myself, the lame man's deal, right? This guy, Benjamin Rabin, was a mathematician who wanted to summon a Mayan god. He figured out that he could do this in this 5-day period that's pretty much the Mayan leap year or leap days. And you can end up summoning the god by killing a male and a female and doing some rituals. And then you end up being able to ascend as an all-powerful being. This is what this guy wanted to do, what Rabin wanted to do. When this was all going down, Peter ends up stalling him. Really, the thing that really defeated Rabin back in the day was just time. He ended up going too long and didn't get to summon this god until after these leap days ended. So, and the weird play of it is, I thought this was going to be something like a Halley's Comet, like, and the way the sun lined up with Jupiter, you can only do this every 20 years. You can only do it every 15 years. Doesn't seem to be the case, but he's back in the game here. Again, remember, this is a year ago, too. But he's back. He has seemingly slaughtered a bunch of guys. He's in jail in a cell. They're all dead. There's one guy's left who ends up having the Mayan symbols on him. And you end up having Rabin give him, his deal. He's like, my equations are sound. YF awaits me in Zebulon, all this stuff. But you kind of get the idea. And he does slaughter this guy, but says your sacrifice will be appreciated. It will be talked about among the gods, and he does end up gutting this guy who then goes down. So that's the big play, that he wants to ascend and he's back doing his deal. So you go from there to then see him glowing outside of Mary Jane's apartment with Peter there hanging. And this, they even point out, this was back in Amazing Spider-Man 894. So that's kind of a cool enough callback. It was right when you ended up having Zeb Wells and his whole Beyond squad kind of take over the book from Nick Spencer. They were going on and in the Beyond stuff. And so we did see this. And he's talking in Mayan, it seems. And Peter says, get back. What are you doing? This guy just kind of floats in and says, do you remember me? And like, yeah, I think I do. Let's get going. And so all of this is a big fight. Rabin is back. He's back to do what he wanted to do originally when Peter defeated him. And they end up having a fight. Peter gets the crap kicked out of him, but Rabin gets knocked out of the apartment as well. He falls and gets up, and then Peter's changed into Spider-Man. He says to Mary Jane, you have that spare, costume here still, right? Yeah, let's go. So he ends up, and Spider-Man is now going to fight Rabin. And he kind of knows the play. He ends up webbing his mouth, and he's trying to take him down. It's not really that long a fight. But what ends up happening is he ends up tagging Peter. And we do end up having a flashback page, or at least half a page, of kind of what happened in Amazing Spider-Man 555, 557. One of the cool things was it was a Wolverine team up. You see that. But you see all these things going down. And you see a guy with Peter at one point that does look like, you're looking from the back, it looks like Paul. It looks like Paul to me. If you go and read those issues, there is a guy named Vern who ended up being, on the run from S.H.I.E.L.D. He ended up kind of being a drifter kind of deal, but ended up gathering up a bunch of other homeless guys, and they ended up helping Peter take down Rabin. I'm starting to think that that's Paul. I'm thinking that that was Paul. They just changed the name. He changed his identity. He wants a new life. He got a little, fancy with Mary Jane. Maybe, I don't know, but that's what it seems. But in this part, Rabin, he ends up tagging Peter, talking his stuff. And that tag also goes through and goes off and appears on Mary Jane's wrist. She's tagged as well. And from what I've seen and what I read from that Amazing Spider-Man deal with Rabin, he does have to kill a woman to get this whole ascension. Back in the first story, it was Carly Cooper that he was trying to do, but they saved her. So what's going to happen with Mary Jane? Now, here's the snafu. Mary Jane in this is definitely wearing the present day clothes, not her flashback clothes that she should be wearing at that moment, but it doesn't really change the story. It's just kind of odd. But yeah, she gets tagged, and then boom, Peter and Mary Jane are now in an apocalyptic scene with a giant dragon. And yeah, I mean, it's a destroyed New York City. So what gives? What's going on? It's intriguing, right? I mean, I have theories that Paul, he's sus, and I do think it might be that guy who helped save the day back in the day. Maybe he was mad later, and so I don't know. We'll have to see what that's all about. Now, I said before that this mystery box storytelling and how it compares to other things. One of the things that people have been bringing up lately is that, hey, don't get mad at Zeb Wells because he's extended this mystery. Nick Spencer did it and had it threefold. You had to wait so many more issues to find out about Kindred than we ever had here. Now, the difference in my mind is when Kindred popped up, it was that behind the scenes, I'm going to get that Peter. I know more about him. I'm going to be the one to screw with him. And people seem to be intrigued enough by it where I saw a lot of theories. Oh, who's Kindred? But that's different. A mystery of who's that in the background trying to mess with Peter is so much different than how the hell did Mary Jane get kids? I mean, this is a slap in the face to a lot of people who just want Mary Jane and Peter to be together and possibly have their kid back. I mean, this really felt like it was an antagonizing deal. Even so worse, because once we got out of Nick Spencer's run, everybody at the end thought Nick Spencer's run was going to culminate in getting rid of One More Day. And then it didn't. Got rid of Sins of the Past. It did okay, right? But we go from that to them once again having not just, hey, Mary Jane and Peter are fighting. I mean, this is way beyond that. You're throwing it in the face of fans. So that mystery is so much more upsetting than who's Kindred. So when you end up, I don't care if you waited 3 issues, 10, 20, 70, it's going to upset people. It's a little different caliber of mystery. So that's why I do. And I ended up talking to some guy about this, and that's what I told him. I think that this mystery is so frustrating for longtime fans who really just want Peter and Mary Jane to be together that it didn't matter if it was long, short, or whatever. It was going to upset them. But we'll see how this ends. Now, my other thing that I do want to bring up, because these kids don't make any sense, but you're playing the devil's hand, because if you end up having the kids featured a lot, I'll tell you, you'll fall in love with them. You can tell from just the couple scenes they're in. And then if you're going to have to get rid of them somehow, even if it's by magic, that's then going to upset some people. We haven't had the kids much. And I was thinking about it when I was reading this. Why didn't we get the kids that much? I mean, the idea that you end up having beginning of the run and here are the 2 times that the girl's name was said. that shows we didn't get much of the kids. And I do think it's 100% because you can't let people fall in love with them because they're just going to disappear. And so the big play after that will be, do they end up disappearing? Does Mary Jane remember them? Because that's going to upset her. Is it all that? Who knows? And it may not even be that. Again, this is all conjecture and me trying to figure it out. But as you can tell, though, I'm finally a bit excited about this. I don't know that this issue was the greatest thing ever. I'm going to tell you it wasn't. And I'm not going to tell you that I'm like, okay, everything before this is forgiven. Let's go. No, but you're starting to give me some clues and I can start to play along. Before there was no way to play along. I love a mystery that you can play along, guess, come up with theories. I do it all the time on all the podcasts that I end up doing. And up until this point, there was no way to, anything that you did was just a pure guess up until this point. But now you're starting to see things. Now we got some clues. Now if you do a little legwork, you can figure it out. But still, with all that said and done, not a ton happens in this issue. Yeah, I mean, big things happen, but it's a very quick issue. I actually thought that it might have even had less of a page count because it was so quick, but maybe it's because I was enjoying it a bit. I do like John Romita Jr.'s art in this. I saw a lot of people didn't like it at all. I actually liked it. And so I'm going to go, I'm going to go 6.8. And I'll tell you, each time I read it, it did go up a bit. At one point, when I first read it, I was so frustrated and upset. And like, Rabin, what the? It would have been way lower than this, but 6.8. Thanks everybody for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, enable the notifications, and let me know what you thought about this issue in the comments below.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.